So, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll continue with the presentation. So we'll go right now and review one of the releases that is on the coming early next week, next year. That is the advanced Y pack controller. So we know, for example, the Cypher 30 and the Cypher 50, they offer edge licensing. So who knows what edge licensing is? What does that mean? Anything?
Get you to the cloud, doesn't it? Get you out of off the facility.
Yeah, so at some point, yeah, it was correct. So to put a device on the edge is trying to get as close as possible to the field, and then get that information as close as possible to the cloud without having to go through like a supervisor or other things. So that is the main concept. But in Tridium, the edge devices for right now, and you might know the Cypher 10 is an edge device. Then we have the Edge 10 that is the same controller from Vicon, but they do the edge. So we did the same approach with our Cypher 30 and the Cypher 50. So they offer edge licensing. And what that means is because you have that controller on the field and you don't want to go all the way to the supervisor, that means the SMA could be potentially waived, right? So you have unlimited SMA. So that's the advantage of going through the edge. What is the problem of the edge? At that licensing piece, the real problem is that you can only have 3 drivers per controller on the portability licensing of Niagara. So those drivers are the protocols. So you need to choose, or manufacturers like us, we need to choose. We go BACnet, Modbus, Panel Bus, and what type of feature is going to be added on that edge licensing. Okay. So for example, most of you will notice that the edge licensing on the Cypher 30 will not allow the Cypher 30 to behave on Modbus as a Modbus slave device. So I don't know if you guys knew that, but that's exactly what happens. So because if we add the master slave, then it's no longer an edge device, it becomes an integration device. So that is how it is done. So on the edge licensing, what we have found out is that there's a demand of that edge licensing, right? If you don't want to go SMAs every single year, 3 years or 5 years on a single device, when you're doing right now air handling units that require more than 24 points of control of the entire controller, the only way to do it is with the advanced right now, because the essential is not yet out. And you can do a Cypher, but no one wants to do a Cypher right now because they know that that is going to go away soon, right? So they want to so what do I do? So we created this, what we call the Y-Pack edge licensing. So these 3-part numbers that you see in the screen, these 3-part numbers, the only difference between them is what type of I/O module the kit contains. So it's a bundle kit that contains an advanced controller with 1-port isolated IP, 1-port isolated switch IP. So you have 2 ports of IP, one isolated and the other one switched. And then the 2 ports of RS-485, like a JACE 9000. You have 2 IPs and 2 RS-485, right? So that is what it's contained on the Y-Pack. So this is the advanced controller. But also it contains 1 16UIO and 1 8 DOR. And if you choose the number 1, it will not contain display. Those 2 I/O modules not have a display. And then the difference between the number 2 and number 3 part numbers is which one has or not a display on. So you can see that. So the number 3, it has this kit. It's again an advanced 1 16UIO, 1 ADOR. And in that case, you will have the display on the number 3, right? Now you have 100 points.
Yeah.
But 100 points is a mix of hardware and software. So if you choose 50 BACnet points and then 25 here and then 10 there, you can still go that way. And then 5 panel plus, let's say, you can still go that way, but your limit is 100 points. It's a mix. If you want to expose all those 100 points, then that is what you get, right? So you have to choose from that edge license, from those 100 points, how many of which type you will have, right? So That is what you'll have to choose. Questions about it? Now, many questions that I get about this is, can I upgrade?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. Give me
Yeah,
some more
you can.
points.
You can, but then like Tridium does it, once you go beyond 100 points, then you lose the upgrade. Because now you're taking that controller to be an integration controller, not an edge controller. So you cannot technically, so for the distributors, for example, or you guys, if you want to have your own stock, you cannot order to Honeywell individual components, and you cannot order the license edge. If you have an advance in your stock, you will not be able to purchase the edge license to license that controller. So this is a bundle kit for the moment. Once we release the essential, that is where everything is different. You have a hardware, and then you need to choose which license you will need. But in this case, you will not be able to do that. Okay, just FYI. If you want the kit, it comes with the advanced and the two IOs. You cannot split it, you cannot change it, you cannot do anything. Now, the distributors, they can do whatever they want in their stock, right? So, but at least for us, we only sell it as bundle kit.
So are these in the parts list, or in the pricing list?
Not yet, because the only thing that I'm waiting is a 16 UIO that comes with the kit to be tested on the license.
An example. When do you think these are?
So I ordered that a month ago, and because the 16 UIO has a little bit of backlog, I'm expecting by end of November I have that. So we can test the license. It will take us 1 week.
Yeah, so any combination of those.
And once it's ready, we will release everything. So by first week of January, second week of January, you'll have the communication bulletin. That is coming next year. That is why it took so long. And the reason why is because I cannot even split the order that I placed to test the license. I cannot split the controller. I have the controller in stock. I have the ADOR in stock. The 16 UIO are not in stock yet, and there are a lot of customer orders. And the system pushed me because I'm a marketing internal customer for Honeywell. So customers go first. So my sales sample order will go at the bottom. It's right sitting on the bottom of all the list. So I need to wait all the orders to be fulfilled until I get mine. So that is why it's taking so.
I don't know if I misunderstood you. You said on a Cyber 30, and I assume this is the same, with the Edge license, you can't configure it as a Modbus slave.
Slave. It's always.
So that doesn't make sense to me. If this is a controller, it should be a slave.
It's an integration controller could behave as slave. But in terms of this licensing, that is why I need to test the license. Because it's my understanding for this Edge license and as well the Edge license of the Essential, it will have both features. But the Cyber 30 how was that designed probably 8 years ago with Tridium? They removed the feature of Modbus slave on the Edge license. On the Edge license. If you go with the other license that includes the SMA, they release a picture. Because
I just want to make sure I heard that correct.
It's correct, and it's correct because we have a customer that had a university college with a lot of Modbus.
Yes.
What is it? Modbus meters, and they have a Modbus controller, I think from Schneider, and they put the Cypher to pull all those meters, but then the Cypher will have to behave as a Modbus slave to that controller of Schneider. And when they figure out like they couldn't, because how that was sold to the end user, we'll have to negotiate with Tridium. Give me all these 200 licenses for featuring, and they added to those 200 to the Cyber 30s, the feature of Modbus. That's in theory or at the beginning of the project for the Cyber 30. The Edge license does not contain the slave option for that Cyber to behave as slave.
At 100 maximum points,
Mm-hmm.
that's the 24 hardware points coming with the kit, take away from that 100, or is it 100 plus?
No, it's 100 that is already containing of that.
So you have 100 more. Plus the 24.
Plus the 24.
Okay, so it's 124.
Yeah, 124. Yeah. Okay. So you need to choose. You can expand those X amount of panel bus or X amount of BACnet and X amount of MUTs. But your limit is 100. So 100 plus a 24 that comes with it. Questions? No? So that is coming. Now, once I had tested the full license, then all that information will come there. So I'm still wondering if those
Then they
numbers
have
falling.
some, but then they have some.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah. So that's why I'm waiting for the license to come.
And this is somewhat a replacement for the plant controller.
Yeah, correct. Because right now we don't have the essential. The essential will come out until May of next year. So in between is like, what are we gonna do 6 months,
Yeah.
right? So that's all. And actually, this one was about to be released, ideally June of this year, but we couldn't make it. Okay, so moving forward, in terms of the rest of the offering, I'll go really quick just with this. I don't know if you guys have questions regarding the T1L, but this is so clear now, right? And it comes really into perspective when we have Longworks out of the market in the next year, right? So, for example, our competitors like this Tech Johnson, they already announced that by March, April next year, they won't be able to ship any more Longworks controllers. We get the announcement from the manufacturer of the world of the chipset. So they purchased to Motorola way back the Achelon the trademark. And with that came the Longworks trademark. So they are the owners of the brand of Longworks. So they call Renesas. And Renesas manufactures the chip that goes in every single controller of Johnson, us, everywhere in the world. Anyone that has a Longworks controller in their offering, a Longworks solution, the manufacturer of that chip that talks Achelon Longworks, it's Renesas. They are not going to sell right now the trademark. So it's known that they are killing now the product line of the chipsets. I don't know why, and I'm really like, I don't know if that is how life works. 15 years ago, the people that were designing the classic Spyder out of the chipsets of Longworks, they decided to pick one. And that one, we got lucky that is not the one that is being obsoleted by Renesas yet. But we already had the notification of Renesas, your chipset is going to go away. So that is why we still manufacture right now Longworks controllers. You can still offer them. The last time buy of our Longworks solution is going to be 2027, the first day. So that means you have from this moment till December the 31st of next year to order your Longworks controllers. Well, the distributors can still keep stocking, right? Stock. But I'm as a manufacturer, I'm not going to manufacture any more Longworks until December of next year. Okay, so we have 95,000 chips out there, but it's a global, it's a global market. So those 95,000 chips can potentially go away really quick. If we lose the 95,000, we sell them, then high likely Renesas is going to tell us, I cannot manufacture more chipset for. So just FYI. Okay, so I know it's difficult. I know it's not going to be well received for the governments, right? We have a lot of Spyder Longworks in government projects in the United States and elsewhere in the world. Like, for example, South America has like 1 million controllers easily of Longworks. That contains Excel controllers. All those are Longworks. No longer can be served. So that is when it comes handy, the T1L, right? So when we designed this and we took the Ethernet standard of the IEEE, which you can see there, that is the IEEE standard, the 802.136G, whatever. That is the standard of Ethernet. And when you go into section 146, and I can share the IEEE Ethernet standard with you if you want, has a ton of pages, but it's the one section that is called 10 base T1N. What you know as LAN networks in the standard, if you talk with people that know standard, they don't call it LAN. They don't call it Cat5, Cat6. They call it 10 base T. That is what the real name, the standard name of Ethernet. And then people get confused. It's still IP? Yeah, it's still IP communication. The only thing that the standard is using different is what they call the median. That is the cable. Okay, so that is the only thing. It's not owned by Honeywell. It's owned by the IEEE. That is like ASHRAE for us in HVAC, right? So it's a global standard. So all those controllers that are Longworks can potentially transform to T1L by reusing the cable of Longworks. Now, just one consideration. In Longworks, you were able to do Delta configurations, right? What happens in daisy chain or IP? You can't. You just can't do it. It's just serial communication or a loop. IP, like IP devices, your laptop, printers, you cannot do Delta configurations on IP. It's impossible to do. So just FYI, if you have a Longworks architecture, that in that architecture has a Delta configuration, the T1L is not your option.
Well, I thought you could tap. Thought you could T-tap the T.
You can T-tap, but it has to have a consideration in terms of testing. But in IP, you cannot do Delta. Like you cannot do any Delta configuration. So this behaves as any other IP controller. So the standard of Ethernet doesn't allow any Delta configuration. Now the T-tap, it all depends. We need to analyze both ways, and with the IEEE, that architecture to see if that will be easily fit for the T1L. My recommendation, if you find those, just don't offer the T1L because it is not on the standard, right? So
Well, rewire.
you will have to in that
Yeah,
case,
rewire,
yeah,
get
everything. Now, when they were doing the Delta configurations, people that they know how to do it Delta, they're masters of doing Delta configurations of Longworks, and it's not easy. I remember just like that those architectures are not easy. So you won't find those Delta configurations like in most of the cases, probably 20% of your cases is Delta configuration. The rest is Longworks daisy chain, right? So the IEEE invented this. It's not owned by Honeywell, and we are still the only manufacturer of BMS controllers in the world that has T1L. Cisco has their own T1L. You'll find T1L somewhere else, like PLCs and others. But in BMS control systems, we're the only ones. We know about another competitor that it's Delta, that they want to release their VAV T1L controller. That highlight is going to be the next one to come, but still not out there in the market. So we were first. It's not easy. So this tech is going to figure out how to do this. Johnson will have to figure out how to do this. It's not easy. You need to redesign the controller. That is why we also start with a unitary controller, not the VAV controller. Because to redesign the chipset, to use the chipset of T1L on a controller that was not designed on the board to have that T1L on it, it was difficult for us. That is why we didn't went first for the VAV, even though the biggest use of the controllers is on VAV spectrum. You use some probably 10 VAV controllers per unitary for a unitary, right? And just because how many VAV boxes you have on the HVAC source, right? So, but that is why we took our time to do it right on the VAV. Okay. Now, T1L offers for us also another good thing, and this is part of the standard. T1L standard. Any manufacturer of the chipset, like Texas Instruments, Broadcom, and the rest, what they do is they follow the standard like any other device of IP, like your laptop. So for you as a manufacturer of an IP device to say that your product can talk Ethernet, you need to follow that standard. And once you have done that, then you can say your device is an IP device. The same is applicable to our controllers, to all the controllers in the world. So in the standard, T1L exposes a lot of information. One of them has to do with the failed daisy chain over switch. The chipset will tell the manufacturer like us that they had lost communication on the daisy chain. But it's up to the manufacturer to do something with that information. And this is getting interesting. Because when we were able to take that information from the chip, we use that information to latch a mechanical physical switch that is on the T1L controllers. That is normally closed, opens when it has communication, but immediately the controller loses communication, it closes and bypasses it to the next port. That is what you guys know on the specs, like IP fail safe switch. The T1L controllers have it. All of them, the VAVs and the unitary. Now, if you go into a spec and they say, I need an IP failover switch, you can use a T1L. It's still an IP device and offers a T1L failover switch.
What condition is considered the failover? Loss of power.
Loss of power and loss of communication. So how the Ethernet standard works, when they did the IEEE designed the T1L standard, the chip for all that, and every single manufacturer of the T1L chip has to follow that standard. The standard specifies that the chip needs to communicate that there has been a communication loss on the chip. That is
So
per
from
standard.
the chip to the processor of the controller?
That is for the manufacturer to use.
Right.
So when, for example, this tech or Delta, whomever follows us, they could potentially not use that information for anything and release a T1L controller that cannot switch over or fail switch over. Even though it's on the standard, that doesn't mean that the manufacturer must do it. The manufacturer of the chip is a must required that he needs to expose that information to the manufacturer. But it's up to the manufacturer to use that information as they please. Okay.
So want to make sure I'm clear on the second. The power, loss of power, Ethernet. If the processor and the controller.
On the chip. Everything is on the chip. So you have, let me
The
bring
chip
the
connected to the network.
the chip is on the PCB board of the controller.
Yeah.
And it's managing the two ports of T1L, the traffic.
Yep.
When it detects that there's no communication in one of either of the ports, it sends that information
it'll drop.
to the manufacturer, and us, we took that information, we processed it in the processor, and then the switch
You close it.
is normally closed until you have power, it opens. So when it detects, and even if you lose power, that is when it latches, and that bypasses the information to the next port.
Okay, I'm good there.
Uh-huh.
What if your processor?
It's normally
Freaking
closed.
line. Shoot.
It's normally closed. The switch is normally closed. So
The
the
processor has to hold it open. But the
it has to
processor- If
correct.
the processor loses track,
Then yeah,
it's gonna
but
go to a fail-safe spot.
correct. Yeah, but
That's been our kind of our
but it's
question.
but it's quality, right? So we know that won't happen, right? So if that happens, there's a
Well,
quality issue.
Come on,
You know what happened?
guarantee it will happen.
So if you lost communication and your switch closes, how does your controller, that switch is closed now, is it still monitoring that connection, looking for it to come back alive and then open back up?
Yeah, it's on the chipset.
Yeah.
So the chip of the T1L, not on the processor
Yeah.
of us. I'll bring the controller in a second. This is important because what happened that we talked with the loops on BMS, no one wants it. So that is why the IP, when it's designed, it's daisy chain, and that is why in the specs, to keep the communication flowing, they say failover switch IP control.
I really apologize. If you
No, don't worry.
already talked about this, but the dotted line going back to the controller, but was that?
That can be a loop. So you can actually have a second fail switch mode
Okay.
through T1L. So the first one is between the controllers, right?
Yeah.
So if this fail communication, then the switch that is here is closes. This controller disappears. This becomes like a line, and then there's communication flowing from this controller to this controller. But if then all of a sudden you start to lose this one, then what is going to happen? It's going to close, and here's the problem. T1L. So I'll go back, and thanks for bringing that. So T1L shows you that you can do 900 foot. By standard, you can do 1 kilometer. That is 3,000 foot. Okay. Why do you want to do 3,000 foot between controller and foot? Even if you can, because standard, why you don't want to do that?
One failure, you exceed.
There you go. Just nail it. Why? Because if I go to the next slide and I have my daisy chain, and let's say, oh, but the T1L noises, it allows me to go 1 kilometer, 3,000 feet from here to here on a cable. Yeah, you can. But immediately you lose this controller and you still have another 3,000 here. What is the distance between this controller when this one fails? It's 6,000 feet. You already surpass the standard of T1Ls. That is why we say the maximum allowed between devices on the AC chain. If you want to still use the fail-over switch, is 900 something foot, or you can do 1,200 foot between this device and this device, and still keep communication between this, right? Now, in that case, you want to go and lose another one and still have more, you can use a second T1L adapter and close the loop on the other section. So that way, if you lose two on the daisy chain, this controller and this controller can go all the way back, like the run, all the way back to the J or whatever IP.
So we've done this, we put these in, and that's a real feature. Like that's real. So like Connor can talk about it a little bit, but if you have too big of a gap, you'll lose your controller.
Yeah.
So like you are going to have to think about this controller distance.
Yeah.
And if you lose, hey, I lost a circuit, you lose 6 of them, and it's over that 1,000 feet, you'll lose it.
Yeah.
You'll lose the rest.
What's your example? How many feet was that?
I feel like that was a little bit shorter than what we're talking about now. That happened in Russell. That was
It happened to me too. So, I mean,
it's not mandatory.
Maybe I would say 60.
Yeah.
In practice. I mean, you can go quite a few, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're trying to go from here to there. Like in the example we had to go, the bus that was run in a 2-story building, was run from the corner of the one building, all the way across the building, up the other wall, and then all the way across the top floor of the building. So we had to put a repeater.
Was I there? Oh, no.
Yeah. This was an existing building, we were just retrofitted. So we had to put a repeater, so we have a controller that does nothing but an accident to get up to the second floor.
So you're using a repeater that does T?
No, we're using a controller.
It's just-
That's the beauty of T1L.
That controller that just does nothing.
Okay.
It's labeled on the.
You're just putting it in there to boost it.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's just the pass through. Right,
Okay.
and so we had to be able to get up to the next floor.
I'll bring
Because of
the samples.
So
Give me a second.
distance with this is real.
I'll bring the samples because I need those.
So it is something to consider, like, but, and it, if you're gonna get into this and you're gonna do some of this, we can talk about it more once he's gone, like, not talk, but once we talk, but the path in which you go, you're like, oh, I'm gonna start on the far end and work back. Well, you won't see anything till you get everything done. It's almost you can just start at the J and go out away from the J. So if you're gonna retrofit, you don't actually see them as you're going.
Have you guys done any testing where you have like, and then like you have an IP controller somewhere along the line, just so you guys another adapter?
No.
That to an IP.
It's IP. So this is really important because So that is really important. So many people confuse. Well, but this controller is T1L. What happens if I have out of this? Let's say I have then VAV boxes, and all of those are Cat5 5P. How do I connect those? I need the adapters.
Yeah, backwards.
But this device is not a gateway. This device is a cable converter. Doesn't use any IP. So you don't set a MAC address in here. You don't set an IP address in here. You don't set a subnet mask. This is completely invisible in the system. Completely.
Yeah.
So when I use, if let's say, well, in retrofit applications, for example, let's say the end user says, I don't have the money to do this. Even if I change the controllers only and keep the wiring, I cannot invest on all those controllers at one single shift. So what you can do? So let's say you have this one as an IP. So just imagine they are IP, Cat5, Cat6. And this one's were Cat5, Cat6, but the end user is saying, I can invest on 3 on this net, on this branch.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do? So you invest on the 3, you change this one, and this one to T1L. You reuse the cable that you have there, And here's getting interesting because you have T1L, right? But it's still IP communication. These two controllers, if they were IP, they don't know what type of cable is in here. The only thing that they see is, this is an IP device, and this is an IP device, and this is also an IP device. All of them are on the same subnet mask IP address, and well, the IP address is different, but they are on the same trunk. So the only thing is you just place the adapter in here, and from this point, you continue Cat5 in this one, and from here to the rest, the DC chain of T1L. So it's still IP. That is why when people say, but I cannot use T1L with Cat5, Cat6. No, yes, you can. When these guys were so brilliant, because the IEEE thought really almost of everything. The reason why T1L was invented has to do with PLCs. So PLCs on a factory, let's say Ford, whatever brand you want to pick of America that it's automobile industry, the facility and how many miles it has, like huge amount of miles, right? And you have PLC controllers, and the PLC versus our control system, every single controller has their own processor. On PLC, that doesn't work. You have a PLC that is the main CPU, and then you have a ton of IOs, out there. So when they were designing Ethernet for PLC, they figured out like, oh, this thing is gonna go really bad because the problem of IP Cat5, Cat6, Cat4 is distance. You can only do 100th, and then you need a repeater, a switch, or whatever, and then you can go another one and another one. So it's a nightmare for IT. It's a nightmare to do that because every single one is a node, and every single node is a potential way of failure point, right? So how many times you guys need to punch a Cat5, Cat4, Cat6? It takes a time. Not only that, when they invented the Cat4, Cat5, Cat6 cabling, these guys were so brilliant that like, wait a minute, these are blue, orange, red, green, and brown, and they come in first. But then when you look at the standard of Ethernet, what are you gonna do? It's like, oh, I cut it, but then I need to untwist the pairs, which is so stupid. And then this nuts. These guys are brilliant. And then you need to arrange them in a specific order for that to have communication. And they were so brilliant that they created two different standards, the A and the B. So out of a sudden, at that time, there was no globalization. So they were never thinking about, oh, there's going to be an IT guy coming into America to do this. Oh, guess what? So if you have an IT guy that all of a sudden comes into America, he knows about the standard of B, how to arrange the colors on B standard, and we know about A. If you on a segment you have A and B, doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. You say, but it's IP. Yeah, but you need on those two, on the end to end, the same type of color white. Not only that, so there you have the first failure point. Then what happens? Okay, I have a plug that I have to stick really bad because that thing was really bad design of plug. And if for the 8 pairs, one does not really fits into the to the bracket where you have this kind of copper, gold metal that goes. If that all of a sudden that doesn't touches, then what happens? You don't have communication. If you didn't do it firmly, and all of a sudden, guys, we know all of us, we pull cable. So all of a sudden you pull harder, you can actually go, right? So you have another failure point. How many times you need to punch a cable? 2 times. So you have 1 point here, 1 point here. But then what happens? You have 2 ports. It's not like MSTP. What happens in MSTP? You have 1 port. You come in, and you're from the same port, you come out. In the AC chain IP, you come in 1 switch on 1 port, and then you come on the other port and follow. Every single controller needs to be punched 2 times. 4 times, because it's one when it's connected, and then the others. So how many failure points are there? It's a nightmare. Here, you have this. How many failed ports I have? One. Unless you didn't put or tighten enough this baby, then you will lose communication. Now, these guys were so brilliant because they were saying, okay, we have all these IP devices out there for PLCs. What happens if we design the T1L? Can we reuse even the Cat5, Cat6 cable? Because Cat5, Cat6 cable and the Cat4, they're coming in pairs. And the standard of T1L is a twisted pair. Shielded, not shielded, stranded, not stranded, whatever you want. The only limitation of the standard is that if you want to go 900 foot or 3,000 foot distance, point to point, the only limitation is that you need to have that cable at 18 AWG. That is the gauge of the cable. So that is highly likely what happened there. Once you start to go further and further on the distance, the diameter of the cable needs to be less and less, right? So sorry, yeah, in number, it's higher in diameter, right? Vice versa. Sorry. So yeah, that is the only limitation. So if you want to go 1,000 kilometers or 3,000 foot from point to point, you need that cable to be 18 WA. Why? Voltage, distance, and trucks. Questions regarding T1L?
One thing to note on that thing, if you look at it real quick, it says 24 feet. It's DC.
Is this it? Yeah.
It'll take AC, but it won't work.
No, it won't work. And it came with a.
Blow it up.
It doesn't blow it up.
No,
From what I hear.
Yes, correct. It will blow it up. And this was a shame because where is my. Hang on a second. This is a shame because our manufacturer of the T1L adapter. You see this barrel over here? They were supplying a power supply of 24 volts from 120 or 240 because they are European to 24 volts in here. Brilliantly, I don't know, probably lucky us, the WPM that you use on the Jace 8000, 9000 is exactly the same one that goes in here. So right now, if you purchase this one, it doesn't come anymore with a power supply. But also, what they were using this on the manufacturer, and they realized is VDC. Well, right now the only controllers in the world is a unitary and the VAV. Guess what we have as a power supply output on these two controllers? 24 volts VDC. So now you can power this thing with this one. And then you don't need the power. Now, people are using this to many things. It's incredible how we as engineers think how to break the rules. And these guys, there are people doing like, oh, I have printers in one floor that all of them are IP, but I need to communicate those to a switch or server that is really, really far away. They purchase two of this, and they go from those printers. They put the printers in here, and they go twisted pair all the way to that switch. And where that switch is, they put another one, and they convert it back. This thing doesn't know if this is a controller or not. I can put a computer in here and go 1 kilometer outside and put another one there, and those two will be communicating. So this is not a like, oh, it's only for controllers. No. There are people using this for many other stuff. Okay, so just FYI. So it's insane. So yeah, it's really cool. Okay. Questions of T1L? No? No more questions? It's clear, right? So so you have how many? So back again. How many IP devices I can put in a loop? How many? 40 maximum. And remember, if you do a loop, one of those need an RS-TP switch, okay? And then what happens on the AC chain IP devices? That's interesting. In our controllers, our limit is 100 controllers, the AC chain IP. Okay? So you can have 100 VAV controllers and 100 mix of VAV unitary or all up 100 type of controllers IP. 100 devices daisy chain. Okay, that is the limit. Good. So T1L, like you will see, will become more and more into the integrators platforms. Actually, we're using T1L IO modules in Europe for a specific brand that it's called Trend. And we didn't want that to happen in here because the chipset is still not as inexpensive as we think. So to put a chip of T1L, if every single IO module is going to be custom, and then that drives the price, right? So we decided, well, let's not use T1L on the IO modules. So we're not going to stop on the controllers. You'll start to see wall modules, thermostats, valve actuators, and T1L. So that is one thing. And there's a project out there that is called SIL 2.0 that we still don't know when it's going to come out, but it's using the T1L standard at some point. That on a twisted pair, not only you will be able to have communication, but also power. Power of 24 volt VAC, 120 volts VAC, or 230 volts on a twisted pair, communication, and power. So that is huge.
What's the distance on your?
Still, I cannot disclose more information, but that project is there. Right now it's on hold because there are a lot of projects like the ones over you see on the roadmap that requires more investment, and because the N5 is right next the corner, we need to start migrating as much as possible everything to one platform, so we can start using money to invest on other stuff. Okay, so there's a lot of information. We will share this presentation, and then on the unitary spectrum, just recap. We have 2, 4. It's 12 different part numbers, right? And from the 12 different part numbers that you have learned, you need to choose if they have Bluetooth or not Bluetooth. Okay. If they have Bluetooth, they can use the check and wire it out. That is a pre-wiring validation application. Can I add Bluetooth to an existing controller that doesn't have Bluetooth? No, you can't. There's no way to do it. We know Belim and the rest are using a dongle. That highlight is going to go away because no one wants to use a dongle because it creates a cybersecurity problem. Okay? That is another thing. And then also government project says you cannot have that add on because then someone later can come with a dongle, plugging himself into the controller and do whatever they need. So that is why they're going to go away as well. So we know our competitors are going to change those things. Okay. So that is the difference. Right now, the controller, if you have one controller, like the VAD controller with Bluetooth, like the one that's in my hand, actually this is the 2.1L. And how do I know it's a 2.1L? Because you will find 2 ports. If I take the MSTP version, you will only find 1 port in here. Okay. But if they look exactly the same. So, what happens in Bluetooth? Like, well, Moises, I only have one Bluetooth controller on my trunk. Can I see the rest of the controllers on that trunk? Yes, you can. The same is applicable for the unitaries now. So you can have one unitary controller on that trunk, use that app on that one, and that doesn't mean that the rest they need the Bluetooth. At the beginning, and when we launched this one with Bluetooth, you have to have that. But now you have the possibility of, by using one, you can see the trunk. Okay. So just FYI. And then Bluetooth, like any other Bluetooth, distance is a problem, right? So even though you have Bluetooth out there, you cannot go 5 miles down the stream and try to figure out what's going to happen with the controller, right? So yeah, Bluetooth has its consideration. That is when it comes the next project that we'll have in 2027. We're adding a device to enable Wi-Fi somehow communication between controllers and devices, even if the controller is not Wi-Fi. So just FYI, that is coming because we know that there's a lot of need of Wi-Fi in some projects, and they only want to use like a dongle of Wi-Fi. It's not a Wi-Fi, traditional Wi-Fi. We call it Wi-Fi Halo. It's also part of the Wi-Fi standard, and it has its own thing. Okay, so it's gonna come. in 2027. Okay, so I will skip all this because we already know. You have Modbus communication, you have cell communication. You can do these two controllers. What is the difference between these two controllers and the advanced? The programming tool. These two controllers are programmed via IRM. That it's a module that we created out of the Niagara framework to hold our tools. And then we have a Niagara kit control on the advanced. That's Open Niagara programming tool. Why we design those? Well, the easy analogy that I can give you is with Android, right? So you can have Android in many cellular phones, right? Like let's say Pixel, right? And then you have Samsung. And then what is the difference between them? Well, you can have a better camera in one, you can have, but let's say that they have the same hardware. How do you differentiate between one offering and the other? The only way is with the apps, right? So for example, Huawei and Samsung, they do really cool apps using the Android operating system. They develop their own apps that they are branded Samsung, and they create a differentiation on that offering versus, let's say, Google Pixel. Google Pixel uses, let's say, the Gemini AI, and that thing, how they implemented their app, is using the Android operating system. Now, those two are using Android. Can you use an application of Samsung on a Pixel? Why? Because the drivers are owned by Samsung. This is exactly the same. We are using the operating system of Niagara framework, but we develop our own tools that we call the IRM tool or the Spyder tool to hold our know-how to differentiate our offering from, let's say, VOC, right? Or others that are using the Niagara framework. That's the difference. Now, the question is, can you use the IRM on a third-party JACE? Yes, unless that JACE has not open NICs. What is open NICs? Who can tell me what NICs stands for in Tridium? Anyone? Nope. Niagara Interoperability Communication. That is what. It's a certificate that proves that the Niagara is open, so you can use it. How you know your system has open NICs? You go into the license, you open the license as a text file, and you will see station asterisk, brand asterisk, and so on and so forth. That is the statement of case. If that license has those asterisks, it's a wild card in programming, and that is why you get open NICs. So you can use a Spyder driver that we sell through our distributors. You download that driver, you apply it to open NICs JACE, and then you have our programming tools on that JACE. But only if that JACE is open NICs, like a Vicon Tridium JACE, right? So just FYI, you can do that on that, but only if that JACE or that workstation has open NICs. Okay. Good. Questions regarding that? No? Okay, so this one I'm gonna skip, but it is the wiring checkout app. So we have the online version, the offline version. What this does, it's mainly for the contractors where they have limited resources or people that they only have the highest technicians out there doing commissioning. So we find out that in the worldwide, even though the contractors, they do it by their own way, at the end is the same end result. Because what happens? Once you have the controllers installed in your site, someone needs to validate that whatever you connect in the controller is actually following the wiring diagram. Because if that doesn't happen, then what happens with the sequence of operation and the programming that you have here doesn't work at all. So for many years, in many parts of the world, including the United States, contractors, they send the programmer to the site. And when the programmer goes into the site for commissioning, out of sudden finds out that the wiring is still not validated. So they just wasted money, time, probably sending someone on an airplane or driving all the way to that site. And then he realizes that then he cannot do anything until that wiring is validated. To avoid that, without having even the JSON in it, we created what we call the wiring checkout. It's only available for Bluetooth devices. And once you have access to the app is free to install, but to get access, we need to set you up in the system. Once you have access to the system, then you can start validation of that wiring through your mobile phone without having even a laptop there. Not only that, you can push the configuration. If we send these controllers blank to the field, you can push from your mobile phone the configuration to this controller if the inputs and outputs were not configured. And you can do the configuration using mobile phone without even having a license or a laptop on the side. So this comes really handy. Caveats, there are projects like government projects, they will not allow you to have Bluetooth on. For those cases, there are people, ingenious people, that what they do is they purchase one of this, they go into the site, they take out one of the controllers, they put that one in, they start configuring, and then they go to the next. So there's a way to work around. We are so ingenious that we are all engineers and technicians of automation. We know how to bypass the system at some point. So you will be able to see many sites, depending on how that was configured, the controllers, all the information, the firmware type, the model type. You can have a report, and then it creates automatic information. So if I'm the supervisor of the site, I don't need to go or into my computer or anything. I download the app. My technicians are on that side doing the wiring validation, and I can see in real time their progress, right? And as soon as I see that the progress is around 70%, 80% completed, then I can start packing my stuff to go out that side. So it's becoming more and more. Yeah, you can see the concept out of it, right? So it's good. Now, this wiring checkout app, it's also now available on our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth advanced controllers. Because you will have to do the same for this. So if you have an advanced controller, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, you can use the same wiring checkout app. And if you have a train of those babies in here, you don't need a license in this one. Just go into your mobile phone and then start configuring this. Even if they don't have LED display on. But now you have on your mobile phone a way to push that configuration to the iOS. So the next step that we're going to bring on the next year is a tool that you can actually be using on your mobile phone to do commissioning, actual commissioning and programming of the commission. Right now, you cannot force inputs and outputs through the mobile app. You can only view the configuration, what type of sensor was during the configuration, if it passes or not the wiring, right? And but now next year we're going to release a version of that app. We enhance that app, and then you will be able to start doing the commissioning from your mobile phone without having the station. If that controller, even if that controller is not even programmed, we will be able to program the controller via your mobile phone or teach the controller to your mobile phone without the supervisor or the worker. So you no longer need to go with a laptop into some. Okay. So that is really cool coming in. Just FYI, you have this available. You can create reports and so on and so forth. Okay. Good. Now, what about the roadmap of the unitary controller and the VAD? Well, this is when it gets interesting. So the first one is, I'll skip this one that's coming. So I have more slides for this one. So let's talk about what is going to happen on April, end of March next year. Okay, so we have the unitary controller. This is a large version. And between this controller and this controller, there's a lot of sizing points in it. How many points of control this thing has? 24 max for the moment. What happens if you need more? For the moment, you need this one with iOS. So there's a gap. To ease that gap, and because what are the needs of more than 24 points of control in HVAC industry? Well, larger handling units, right? ERVs, energy recovery ventilation units. So you have all those really complex, big, huge air handling units. It's not a plant controller, not a plant, but it requires more than 24 points of control. So what are you going to do, Honeywell? Because you had the Spyder Classic SR with silk IOs that it can do up to 45. So what is going to happen? Okay, so what we're going to do is, remember yesterday I was talking about Modbus IOs by Deep Switch? Remember you have a Modbus port on this controller? So what we're going to do is the 8 UIO and the 4 UIO with and without display will be able to pair with this controller. Now, will it pair with the touch flicks? Nope. There's no touch flicks in the unitary. So how you're going to do it? Via Modbus. Okay. How many of these you're going to be able to pair it? Well, we need to keep separation between the controllers, right? So the maximum points that you will be able to expand is up to 32. Once you reach 32, you will say, Moises, what is the next? Is the essential controller that comes with 28 or more. From 28 to all the way to 600 points, 300, 400 points of control. That is where this baby goes in. Why you need that separation? How many processors this one will have? Two cores. How many processors this unitary board has? One. And it's limited. Do you really want to use more than 32 points on the control system without that much power? You don't want that because it's going to become slow. It's like your app, mobile phone, or your laptop. You start to limit the RAM. If you don't have limitation, you have limitation of memory. What happens? You cannot run anything, right? So that is why we need more horsepower. So that is how we create the separation. As soon as you need more than 32, your solution is the essential or the advanced. What is the problem? The difference pricing point, right? This one has much more power than this one, so it's much costlier than this. Okay. So we're going to enable the Modbus, but only 4 of the IOs will be able to be pairing here. And the combinations that you can have are those that you are seeing here, right? So you can do one UIO, or you can do one AUIO without display, or you can do 2 4 UIOs without display, or 2 4 UIOs with display, or you can do 1 4 UIO with display and 1 without display. The limit is still the same, 32. Okay? Up to it. Questions? Now this comes free if you're using Honeywell. We figured out that our competitors, they changed how they are going to market this year, like this tech. In this tech, they sold you already the Modbus port on it. So we are taking one step further and we say, if you're using any Honeywell device on Modbus, that port is for free. If you want to pair a third party, then you'll have to purchase a driver.
That available in the current entire.
No, that is a good question. So why it's taking longer if you already have the Modbus? Oh, these babies are programmed using a palette on the Niagara framework that we designed for panels. So right now we need to have a tool for Modbus first. This baby runs an IRM program. This baby doesn't know what the heck is this for the moment. So they don't know each other. This one doesn't know what is this, and this one doesn't know. It takes what we call in engineering 3D PI, so product in like enhancements or product introductions or releases. Every single release is of 6 months. That is why we started this project since the beginning of this year. We got access to the resources, but it takes longer because we first need to have Modbus, then tell this thing, this is a unitary controller, and then tell this thing, this is an IO module, and it comes with firmware updates. So until we finally have the firmware update for this controller to allow up to 32 points maximum, 2 of this, then this will be released. So when you have an I/O module in your stock unitary controller, you get the new firmware free, you upload it, even if that controller is not new, and now you can start pairing. You'll have to do a firmware update here and a firmware update there, right? And the tool, the N415. So that is also a consideration. Okay. Questions regarding this two?
What is the major need for this Modbus RTU module? Like, where is that application being seen?
Oh, Europe is the first, and then when we figure out what happened is because we are so delayed on the essential controller. Already contractors are using I/O modules of third parties. I'm not going to say the brand, but they're pairing to our unitary controller. So we're losing market out there, potential market.
I know, but what are they doing this with? Is anyone needing this software?
Well, yeah, it's like you're having it's more than 24 points of control.
So if you need, like, if people don't want to use Cyber, they're like, hey, I got an area, so I need more points. The difference is like on the third party he's talking about, there's no limitation.
Yeah.
So like you could put, if you needed 50 points,
It's just IO.
Yeah.
I see.
they're just adding IO. And so it's like, they need to go and they don't want to, they want to use an optimizer. They don't.
Not only that, we need to protect our brand because what we see happens, and just an actual fact. For example,
Not
Michael.
like
It's so
it's not like you're integrating with some weird third party thing out in
Yeah.
space. Okay.
So then-
basically the replacement for classic was
Correct.
Okay.
So this also to protect Honeywell brand because what happens when you have third-party devices on a controller system? It's easy to blame whatever you see first, right? And we protect Honeywell has a brand to protect, right? So even if you put third parties, you can integrate it. When you start to go 50 I/O modules on a unitary controller to control a chiller plant, that you see why it doesn't make sense because this thing is a laptop that's running probably Windows 95. And that thing is running XP controller, and the other one is it's already on the latest Microsoft Copilot and everything. So, but when you start PERM, it's easy to blame the control. The controller doesn't work. No, the controller needs to do whatever. But just start to add too much to a controller that is not powerful enough for that application. When that happens, when the budget is a constraint. Because you don't always also you don't want to put your name as a contractor on a project that it's a budget friendly, but are we willing to give away our name just because to get that project? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It all depends. But you also have your reputation to be protected, right? Not only us as a brand, but also your reputation, right?
That's not a question. And if you're using IO on bus with like a Chase, is there any special licensing or just
No.
accounts?
That is also why the I/O modules, once they are the 17 are converted to Modbus with a firmware release, you can use those I/O modules on any system that has Modbus RTU. So we're trying to get back the market that we never had. We never had I/O modules of Modbus in Honeywell, at least not on the BMS. We had on PLCs, for example. But now we know there's a market, not only the US, highlighted, but Europe. Oh, bro, those guys are crazy in Modbus. So yeah, I don't like Modbus. It's like that is why we have BACnet. It's that's a problem of Modbus worldwide. Like if this Modbus device is not working with your unitary controller, your unitary controller doesn't work. No, bro. Let's take a look at the registers of this Modbus. BACnet. That is why people love BACnet. There's a standard. Modbus is free for all, bro. You can do your registers or whatever you want. A BACnet object, scheduled BACnet object needs to have this. If it doesn't have this, you cannot tell your controller is talking BACnet at all. You can say it's BACnet, but it's not BTO. So that is the difference between Modbus and there. And to be honest, when I was programmer, and I used to integrate VFDs, VRFs of other brands like LG that they use Modbus. When you go into the register section, sometimes it just takes one number to be wrong, that you don't know why that thing is not working, and it looks like, oh, someone made a typo on the documentation and the register is not that one. So there's no standard. It's so open, nice, but having free for all, then is a problem. It becomes a problem. Okay. Questions? More questions regarding the IOs? No? Okay. Now what happens? Moises, you only have 8 UIO. And so you have up to 16 point of control on the smaller. I don't need 16 for everything. What happens when you have extractors? Extractor fans, exhaust fans. You need only 1 point, 2 points. I'm not going to invest $100-something, $200 for controller on that type of scenarios. What are we going to do, Moises? So we created, and we are doing the compact unitary control. The compact unitary controller is the size of probably here. It's really compact. And it will have, we're still indecisive, but high likely to have UIOs. Or it's going to be universal inputs and universal outputs. Okay? Up to 12 points of contact. So now you'll have from 0 to 12 compact, from 12 to 16 small, and from 16 to 24 now 32 with the IOs. This one from 28 and beyond the essential, and from 300-400 points and above the advanced with IOs. Now you can see the segmentation. Now you can see why we don't want more silk IOs out there controlling chiller plants, because it doesn't make any sense at all. It was making sense 20 years ago because we didn't have IP communication, we didn't have all this technology. Now we need to create separation per application. So now it starts making sense, right? So that is how we are going to end up with the unitary. Questions about the unitary? It will have silk. It might not have Modbus. Just avoid it. Okay. Why? Because it's a small controller. Why do you want to add more cost on that thing, right? So we're still deciding that kind of. Okay. So my question to you is, if you have this controller without Modbus, will be a problem? Anyone? Do you think it will be a problem? No?
Once in a while, we'll pull like a VFD or something into it, but there's other options for that.
Okay. Silk, yes, right? It needs to have a silk, right? For the TRs. What about the universal input and outputs? You prefer it to be universal input and outputs, or it can be universal inputs and universal outputs? What do you guys prefer?
Kind of like having all the options.
So you universal input and outputs, even though that it might add, let's say, $5 to the cost? I don't know. Like just FYI, because if we go that way, that means this one purple is costlier than the UIO. Sorry, the universal input like this one.
I mean, we've done it that way for years with dedicated inputs and outputs.
Okay. So we will have that analysis, but just FYI, that is still undergoing if we go UIOs or universal inputs or universal outputs. Okay.
On the
smallest, yeah. This one is not.
Give it as cheap as you can.
Okay, yeah, that is what everyone is telling me. Do it as cheap as you can.
We got all the other options. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times we need that little guy, and it's got to be cheap.
Yeah, like
You know,
we call it
too
like a
long,
Street
you got
Fighter
to
controller.
It works great for them. Right? Throw a cheap one in there, and what do we get?
A Street Fighter controller, yeah. So cheap as possible, but can keep anyone's gun. Okay. Good to know. Okay, so what about then? The next release is really cool. So the next release is what we call the engineering start kit. And it took us, and this is a shame of Honeywell, took us almost 20 years to get this thing out. It's been on a draft for many, many years, too long, to be honest. It is what we call pre-programmed controllers. And the only pre-programmed controller we have in our portfolio right now is the Striker controller. The Striker controller has a problem. You cannot modify the program. So even if you want to change a little bit thing under, you can. Just you can. So we created now the engineer starter kit, and the engineer starter kit is what we will see next. So I'll skip all this one, but I'll come back. There you go. Oh, 2 minutes. So what is the engineering starter kit? So the engineering starter kit is a pre-programmed CAN applications for unitary control or VAV control. So they are going to come different from factory where you can configure the control. Why we are wanting this more and more? Well, it looks like all you guys are here. Who might be the youngest guy in the room? Probably you, Berkeley. Well, you're still old for what the people that are coming out of the high school, right? What happens right now? They don't teach you more HVAC. They don't teach you more control systems like this. Everyone wants to be a TikToker out there. Right? So there's a problem. We face a problem. Contractors like you guys will face a problem in the next years. Because we see that on our programming spectrum. We have an engineer team that they are programmers. They don't really understand HVAC concepts, right? It's hard for us, even us, to do inside Honeywell, teach people that they in their life know what a HVAC equipment is. They're doing programming tools for HVAC. There's a problem. Worldwide, the market is changing and shifting from all these guys that they don't want, or they are not being taught on what is an HVAC. And you need to know that before you program something, right? So that is a main problem. And we will see more and more newcomers that the learning curve for a technician on a BMS system is going to be longer and longer, because now you have to teach them what they didn't have in their careers, college, technician, what else. So for a contractor, every single day, every single hour is money out. It's a project that I can execute in time. It's a project that will have a delay. It's a project that might have problems just because my workforce, I'm not saying you guys, that is why I was saying who's the youngest guy here. The people that right now has 8 years old, 5 years old, when they come 24, 21 years old into this market, like, what is going to happen? And it's a problem. It's a real problem. So we created these tools, a library to enable all these new guys coming out of college, university, that it probably is the very first time they see this type of controller and they know what an HVAC thing is, not only the thing on the controller with a mini split, but then I need that guy to program complex things. So we created the pre-programmed application. And the pre-programmed applications, we redesigned this. And we came with easy wizards for anyone, for a tech guy, one first job, to know and compare them. From unitary applications and VAV applications, with heat, without reheat, with fan, without fan. There's a lot of changes. And they will be seeing this type of configurations on the workbench. And you can do cooling, heating, just configure. You go through it all and just start to configure what type of sensor, if you have a TR100, if you have a TR75, and you start to just configure and configure and configure. And we started with the templates like this one, but we ended up with this type of graphics. It's easier, right? To like, it's much more intuitive. Because we know that these guys, probably the first time that they're going to see this type of programs in their life. So we need to make as easy as possible this. It has a lot of question marks. So when you hover your mouse through it, you will see a tip. Why we started to do this, and I'm also a problem out of it, is that you need to go to the documentation and 300 pages to find your answer. Oh, good. It's a problem, right? So we started to build out of this type of things that, like the colors of the terminal blocks at the beginning, you say, doesn't make sense. Until you start use this thing, then you realize, oh, these guys thought about it, right? So you will see all these configurations. This is the scheduling, for example, right? Not only that, we added also the configuration of the how to wire this thing. That was not on our tools. So now you can configure inputs and output as long as you want without assignment. And this is just our first release. We have 6 more releases to go. And we will start adding AI. For example, one of the things that we want is to have a prompt that if you input the scope, just a sequence of operation, guess what? We can create the program for you. All the wire shit. That will help you guys a lot. So we're thinking about going big. This is just the very first beginning. Not only that, it creates you also the 2Ds and 3Ds graph. No more longer to do graphics on your own if you don't want to. Now, what happens, voices? You say, well, I have the unitary controllers. I have the VAV controllers in my stock. What is going to happen if you release this out of the factory? That means that I need to purchase a new controller. You can add this right now if you go into the buildings forum to an existing controller. So you can actually use the tool on existing hardware. Now, what happens if you receive, because in December, we're going to execute this into the factory. That will mean that, and we'll give you a communication policy with a specific date code when that is going to happen. Every single controller has a date code on it. If you find that date code and it's matching the communication bulletin we're going to release, that means that from that date code and to the future, every single unitary controller and every single video controller coming out of the line is going to have all these input. So you don't need to go to the buildings forum and download. It comes out of the box with this. Now, you will ask me, can I erase it? Yes. Can I modify it? Yes. You can do whatever. So that is also a flexibility. Our competitors, they sell you this. For example, this tech, if you want to program in your thing, a specific program, you need to pay X amount so they can download your program to their control, to that control. They have the tool like this, like configuration tool. That is why it's a shame for Honeywell to took 20 years to get this out. But, well, the good things come out of it, right? So, questions? This the type of
So obviously your striker replacement. What's your
there you go.
what's your end of life for that one?
The striker, I need to. This is where when I came into the global spectrum, it gets complicated because it's like me running my startup, and I need to figure out how many chips and raw materials we have for the strikers. So everything is a business, guys. So at the end, corporate is not going to allow me to scrap plastic. And it happened when we had the VAV controller, and we're going to talk about it. We had several VAVs changing color between the Spyder 7 and new. And the reason why we had to do that is because we had a ton of inventory of plastic of one specific color that we wouldn't want to throw away into garbage, and it's a lot of money. The same will happen with the strike. And all the other projects is the same. To define a last time buy, you need to define you have stock, how many raw materials in stock you have. That is money sitting there for us. Then you need to look at the tools. Is the technology capable to go beyond? Then you look at the new product, the commitment to the company, how much revenue we'll get out of this. And it's kind of a Shark Tank, bro. Like, I'm still having care. At some point, I will be probably bold. It's getting too stressed for me lately. But yeah, that is where now the striker will announce it. High likely because the amount of like long works, we want in any last time buy communication to announce it earlier as possible. So I'm thinking I need to drop the numbers, but let's give you guys 1 year, full year to last time buy. So that means that you still have 1 year to place orders of that before you can no longer place orders to us. If the distributors still have inventory, you can still have and get those controllers. But us as a manufacturer, we need to decide when to stop this. And this is also interesting because with the new administration and also the BABA acts and everything, the Build American, Buy American acts, our controllers, most of them are manufactured in Europe. We need to start bringing manufacturing facilities from that part of the world in here, replicating lines. only to comply with bad acts. So yeah, we will do that. But in order to do that, corporate is telling me, you have a line there. Kill that line, and then I'll give you the money to start creating the product.
But unlike the striker, like the program is actually.
Modifiable.
Okay.
But
So if you're, yeah, when you're in that configuration too though, so if you say like no CO2, no fan, no reheat, like just like you're doing only DAV, does all that logic like still stay in there?
it stays there because it's the background.
Right.
If you go there and you want to delete it, you can do it.
Okay.
Now remember, the power of
It's
this
there.
unitary controller
You just gotta get it.
is 7,000 functional blocks.
You're talking about like that
That should
flex app over. Yeah.
So, okay. Questions regarding that one? No?
Just basically the same.
I'll go back really quick to the VAV.
Cleaned up and preloaded.
So the VAV controller, just FYI, at the beginning of this year, we phased out the Spyder Model 5 VAV and the Spyder Model 7 VAV controller. We rebranded it as Optimizer Black color, right? That is the blackish thing that you see here. If you have a Spyder 7 still in your hands, you will see that this color is grayish, right? That is when corporate was telling me, Moises, you cannot scrap $1 million of plastics out of the road. Okay, so I need to do something. That's where we, at some point between this one and the Spyder 7, you could potentially receive Spyder 7's black or Optimizer's gray. And the only way to know which one is which is with the part number. So that is what we decided to do. So we have equivalent part numbers. And we did the same for the Spyder Model 5 compact VAV controller, right? So we make it, instead of, it was already black, but they didn't want that design. It's to talk as a family, right? When you see it as part of the same family. So we redesigned them, and then we released the T1, right? So remember, the only way to know which one is which with an MSTP versus is that you have 2 ports. The MSTP only has 1. Okay. We're still the only ones in the world to have T1L. We have the Bluetooth versions, or without Bluetooth, like just the ones that we have on VAV, and the compact that is the Street Fighter of the VAVs. One thing that we have on the roadmap as well is the separated. So the separated VAV controller is still in 2027, and the reason why is because we need to migrate other stuff to Optimize. So it was 6 months ago to be released in 2026, but then we look at the numbers like, oh. And then Niagara N5 came in and like, guys, you need to start migrating your classic Spyders because it has a cybersecurity vulnerability. The Spyder Classics, the Spyder Venom tool has a cybersecurity vulnerability that cannot be taken over to the Niagara.
Haven't those already been released?
Yes, and also it's only because they.
So really all you're talking about is new plastic cover, new software?
It is, but they use Compass as a software tool. And it's a completely different.
The hardware there.
The hardware is there, yeah. So it's also, we're using that as also as Allerton as our rabbit lab. Because we don't know if how big of a market is out there, right? When we compare the Hypermodal 30 VAV controller, that's still gonna be out there until we release probably this ones, unless Niagara 5 forces me to kill it. But the Cyber 30 VAV is the only controller in our line without a weight on it, but it has the pickup ports of the pressure, right? So it's the only one right now that we have as a VAV separated controller. Now the problem with the caveat with Cyber 30 VAV, it's high cost versus a this thing. So yeah, so that is why. But yeah, the Allerton team was already releasing this one, but the bad of Allerton, they don't have the advanced yet. They don't have the IO modules yet. They don't have a lot of things that we already have. Optimizer is the first really brand of Honeywell having the platform, what we call the platform that we call BITS internal, and then the automated control platform. that all the brands are jumping in. Finks, Controls, everyone is jumping in. It's reusing the hardware. It's a platform. It's like automation is doing, automobile industry is doing the electric cars. You take out batteries, you put more batteries, you stretch the size of the car, but it's still the same electrical car. The design, the platform is the same. I'm just moving pieces to create an SUV or a compact car, right? Versus having a gear. It's complicated, right? So that actually the platform came from the automobile industry. And the very first controller to be a platform was a VAV controller hybrid, what we call the F1 controller. And that name was, if you guys know John Liu, John and Lou, well, Lou Jones, Lou was the mind behind the platform. He saw one day, Sunday, he had nothing to do. And I was looking at the F1, Formula One. That is why the project was called F1 Controller. This has to do with Formula One. And what they do in Formula One, they have a chassis, and then they start to build blocks out of the platform. And that is why he would say, what about when we can start doing that in our controls? And that is how the Cyber 30 F1 controller came in. We shared that same platform with Allerton. There's an Allerton called VIP controller that it's exactly the same as Cyber 30. Just blue and white. That I don't like those colors. Okay. So questions regarding this one? Now the engineering start kit is applicable to the V. Okay. One last thing. If you go into, where did I put this one? If you have a unitary application, 1 or 2, so you guys want that to come out of the factory and the most used by you, please send out to me either the sequence of operation, if you want the programming to be sure, you can do that, or just a text of, this is what I normally use in unitary control. Send that to me. We'll make sure we can pair with you guys so we can design that application coming out of the factory if it's the most used across you guys. Okay, so we're open for that. Mm-hmm.
Like right now, when you get a optimizer from EV, you're dropping the templates in it. That'll kind of go away when this.
Actually, those templates that were designed by John.
Yeah.
John designed this.
Okay. But this will already be on
board
too.
Yeah.
And pretty much replicate
what that thing
template
does. Yeah. We're not going to stop on this release, like I was saying. The next release, it's where did I put this one? Did I put a slide about it? Should be. Come on. Did I put that slide on it? No, I didn't put it here. Sorry, but I have it on another presentation that I can add it to this deck before we share it. The next iteration, that is iteration number 3, it comes with Astra 36 standard application. So that is also one of the requests that we had from the market. It comes with bulk deployment configuration. So in the first release, you'll have to configure one by one. You will not be able to do bulk deployment if you have 100 VAB boxes. Personally, you will have to go click in there. But now, with the bulk coming out, then you can push that configuration to all those controllers you want. So that is coming also. Then we will have a chatbot in Niagara that you can start asking dumb questions, really complex questions. Like, I don't understand this functional block. Can you explain it? And so that is also going to be built up next year. So really cool things coming on. So I really like it. So, and yeah, finally we see Honeywell investing in control systems. Yeah.
With Niagara 5 and the AI features,
it's going to be an add-on.
Into it.
It's going to be an add-on, and at the end, no one wants. Yeah, it's like AI right now. Like, oh, it's nice to have, but I don't want to pay for it, or I'm willing to pay. Like ChatGPT. There's a version that is free, but then if you want to go even deeper into the ground, then you need to pay a certain.
Kind of messed around with it and seeing what it could do.
Correct.
And it'll spit out stuff that's about halfway right now.
Yeah.
But if you tailor that AI specifically,
So this, correct. That is the beauty of doing that. Yes, correct.
It's going to be question and answer. You're going to tell you base what you want. It's going to come back and say, does it have this, this, and this? And
Yep. Yeah, that is the separation we want to create with the AI tools versus our competitors, because we understand functional blocks and the Wireshark and all that stuff. If we go out there and try to pair with Google or someone else and to explain them how this thing works, is way worse than having, hey, give me access to your AI. I bring that AI to my server, and then I put my know-how into that AI, and then I can create better outcomes just out of the prompt, right? Like this is my sequence of operation, then you know exactly, and when you feed or you fed that AI with our own programming or even yours, it starts to learn, you know? It's way better. And then this is like anything. We have programmers that they use AI to program code. What is the problem? The problem when you forget about AI. What happened when you have a coworker that he was a master doing programming, right? And then he's going away to another company or everything, and then tell you, "Oh, this is the code. This is the Wireshark." And you go into that Wireshark, and you have a clue what is going on. It takes you more time to understand what someone else did that you from starting from scratch, right? The same is happening with the AI, with all the AI tools. At the beginning, all the programmers were saying, "Oh yeah, free AI," like, and then you start to see a code that you were not part of that thought process. It gets really complicated because now you need to understand what the heck the AI was thinking that is making sense to the outcome that I want. It takes probably more time than, oh, let's start from scratch.
All right, we're gonna take, voices, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of do just, ask some topics. We'll kind of chat about what we think about a few things, and then, we'll get you guys out of here. Voices will be here till
4
here, so
p.m.
you guys
4 p.m.
want to, Ben is here about anything specific. He's the guy you're gonna want to talk about related to Optimize Line, anything moving forward. So utilize it while he's here. But yeah, we'll about 10 minutes and then we'll come back. We've got an hour and we'll go through just a couple of topics that everybody's just some thoughts on. So,
And please send me your sequence of operations, whatever you want to add to that. Feel free to do that. As long as you want to share that with us.
Oh, shit. Sensor for them, like, back over, and anyone else. Doing, they're gonna down, and then a different style program. This one is.
Yeah.
A lot.